Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from Toptechboy.com, and we are here today with lesson number 6 on the most excellent Sketchup CAD 3D software. If you've been with us through the first 5 lessons, you know that we're trying to have you work to where you're not just learning how to draw things in Sketchup, but you're going through sort of a workflow where you conceive of something, you then sketch it up in SketchUp, design it in SketchUp, you then fabricate it, and then you use your calipers to evaluate it. So we want you to kind of from the very start get in your mind this idea of workflow. And what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about the importance of design rules. Well, what are design rules? What you have to see is that when you're working in a CAD program, you are designing things, but you cannot design in a bubble. You cannot design in a vacuum. You have to design things from the start, thinking about the fabrication technology. Right now we're talking about sending our designs to a 3D printer, but this concept is true whether you're thinking about fabricating with a 3D printer or sending it to a CNC machine or sending it to a microelectronic fabrication facility. One of the most important things and often overlooked things is designing without thinking about what the capability of the fabrication facility is. And so the way to look at it is there's really kind of 2 parts to this. There's the designer who's sitting with a software program like SketchUp, and then there's the fabrication facility that actually has to make those designs. And the design rules are sort of that interface between the fabrication people and the design people. Now, why is this important? Well, if you're not mindful when you're designing things, you could put a certain feature or a certain characteristic in your design that might not even be that important, but because you have that particular structure or feature, it might require you to use a 3D printer that costs $100,000 to where if you had just modified your design a little bit, you could build the design on a printer that cost $1,000. And so what you have to do is when you're designing, you have to be mindful of the design rules. The design rules, you could think of a document that is sort of an agreement between the people that have to fabricate something and the people that have to design something. The design rules are that agreement that you get between those 2 groups. Now, if you're working with a microelectronics facility, likely they will, as a designer, they will send you the design rules and they will say you shall follow these design rules. In other places, maybe there's a little bit more influence that the designer has, but in any event, the design rule document is the interface between the designers and the fabricators. Now, if you're working with a 3D printer, chances are you're the designer and you're the fabricator, but at the same time, you need to understand what those design rules are. So what are design rules? Well, let's think specifically. Let's say that as a designer, you want to build a column. The question is, how close can you put 2 columns together to where when you fabricate it, they remain 2 distinct columns? Okay, because you could in your design software put 2 columns that were 1/1000th of an inch apart, but when you're going to fabricate them, you're not going to have 2 columns, you're going to have 1 column. So the question is, how closely can you space 2 things in your design where when you fabricate them, they will still be 2 distinct objects? Same thing, think of holes. If you put 2 holes, how closely can you put 2 holes together before you lose that little divider and you just end up with 1 big hole? So there's a lot of complex things that you could think of with various design rules, but for the sake of this introduction, let's just think of 2 basic things. With your 3D printer, which might very well be different than my 3D printer, how close can you print 2 objects before they become 1 object, and how close can you print 2 holes to each other before they have become 1 hole? And so to do that, what we want to do is we want to design something like this. So look at this. I've got these columns and I start with them 2 millimeters apart, and then I go down in 0.1 millimeter increments until I get all the way down and my 2 columns are 0.1 millimeters apart. Then I will look, and when I make this, I'll see, well, what worked and what didn't work. Similarly, on the holes over here, I'm going to start with the holes 2 millimeters apart, go all the way out to where my holes are 0.1 millimeter apart and then see where things break. And when I design this and then I make it, then I will have my first initial set of design rules. This is also just a great opportunity for us to sharpen our design skills in SketchUp. And so I'm going to go through this and you're going to follow along with me and we're going to design this little thing. So we will start with a new blank sheet. We're always going to select this guy and we're going to delete him. We probably also need to zoom in because, right, we're working in millimeters. Make sure that you open SketchUp to work in millimeters so we will be in the same units. And also, since we're working with greater precision on this, looking for our design rules, we got to make sure that we have our setup very precise. So we need to come to Windows. You need to come to model info, and this 0 millimeter on precision, what that means is like it's 0, 1, 2, 3, you're able to design to the millimeter. But we want to design to the 10th of the millimeter, so we'll come down here and put 0.0, which is just saying you can design with 0 or 0.1 millimeter precision. Also, where you say enable length snapping and then that is set to 1 millimeter, well, you certainly don't want that. Let's see. Yeah, you don't want that. So let's snap it to 0.1 millimeter since that's the tolerance that we're designing to. Okay, so this should make it work for us. All right, well, let's get started. So what we want is we want to start with a rectangle. So we will get our rectangle tool. We did not get the rectangle tool. We will get our rectangle tool. We will snap down here to the corner, and then what I want is I want this to be 136 millimeters. So I type in 136 and then comma, I want it 45 tall. Okay, 136 by 45. Okay, I guess I zoomed in a little bit too much, so I will zoom back out a little bit. Scoot this over where it's back in view. Okay, that looks good. Get it kind of looking down on it like that. All right, now what I want to go ahead and do is I want to make this a three-dimensional object because I want to get this in the in the right depth. And so we will get our push-pull tool. We will come here, and what I want this is I want this 25 millimeters high. So I type 25, enter, and so now this little block is going to be what I'm going to be working on. Also, I want all of these little holes and all of these little columns to be lined up. So what would be very smart for me at this point is to put some guidelines in. And so if I'm going to do guidelines, who is your friend? Your friend is Mr. Tape Measure. So we come down here, snap to this edge, come up. I want all my structures 5 millimeters from the side. So I click and I enter 5, enter. Okay, so that should be good. Click on this face on the edge, come down, and then say 5, enter. And so now I have got a nice set of guides. I also want to come in 5 from this one, so I'll come in and say 5, enter. That looks good. I'll put another one here, 5, enter. And this is just going to make my drawing a lot easier. Okay, so let's start with our first rectangle. Come up and get the rectangle tool. Let it snap down here in the corner. Make sure that you're letting it snap, come up, and then I want this to be 5, 15. Always does it wrong. 15, 5. No matter what I guess, I always guess wrong. That is my first rectangle. Every rectangle is going to be 5 by 15, so I am not going to keep redrawing that. I'm just going to be moving it, tapping the control key. Okay, now the first gap between rectangles, I want to start at 2 millimeters. So how do I get that? My friend is Mr. Tape Measure. I snap there, I come out along the line, I click, I type in 2, enter. All right, now I get the select tool to select this rectangle. I am going to zoom in. I get my move tool. I want to move this corner, so let it snap to this corner. Move it over. Uh-oh, how do I get the original one back? I tap control. When I tap control, that says I wanted to move a copy, not move the original. Now I'm good. I click enter. Snap to that point. Click enter. I am good. Next one, the space instead of 2, I want 1.9. So come out, click 1.9, enter. Get the move tool, select the corner, tap Control, put it right on that point. I'm at 1.9. Okay, I'm going to move this on over, kind of get a little better view of it here. Okay, that was 1.9. Next one would be 1.8. Snap to the corner, come out along the line, type in 1.8, enter. I'm good. Get the move tool, snap to the corner, click, tap Control, let it snap, boom. That should be 1.8, right? So that's 2, that's 1.9, 1.8. Next up will be 1.7. Come in, over, 1.7, enter, get this, snap, Control. That one was 1.7, so we're going to do 1.6, snap, come out, click, 1.6, enter, get this, Control, click. I like to check these every once in a while, make sure I'm getting them right. Okay, that's 1.7. That's 1.6. So these are looking good. Next one will be 1.5. 1.5, enter. Now, get the move tool, get the corner, come out, Control, snap to the point. Okay, and I just like to be a careful guy, so that was 1.5. Now we're going to go 1.4, come along, 1.4, enter, move tool, grab the corner, Control, click to the 1.4. Okay, ruler, this one's going to be 1.3. Move tool, get the corner, tap Control, 1.3. We're going to be at 1.2, click, 1.2, enter, move tool, grab the corner, tap Control, snap to 1.2. We're going to be at 1.1. Okay, grab the move tool, grab the corner, tap Control. That's our 1.1. Okay, we are going to go to 1. We're about halfway through with this thing. Type in 1, enter, move tool, grab the corner, Control. Okay, let's check that, make sure that we are, yeah, we're doing good. So that's 1. I'm going to move this over. We're halfway through now. We're going to go down to 0.9. Get the ruler, snap to the corner, come out, 0.9, enter, move tool, tap Control, 0.9, 0.8, okay, we're going to do 0.7, 0.7, enter. See how close these things are getting? Tap Control. Okay, let's make sure we're still doing good here. Yeah, that's good, 0.7. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This will be 0.6. Grab the corner, Control. Boom. We're going to do 0.5. 0.5, enter. We are going to grab the corner, Control. So that's going to be 0.5. I'm going to go ahead and move this further out of the way. This one we will need to be 0.4. Move tool, grab the corner, Control. 0.4. 0.3. These are getting really, really close. Okay, this is wanting to snap again. Okay, I'm going to turn that snap completely off because that is causing me some trouble. Model info. I thought I changed that to 0.5. What's that doing back there? Okay, we're going to kill that snapping altogether. That's nonsense. Okay, there. Let's make sure we got that. Okay, that was 0.3. Let's make sure these are looking good. That was 0.4. Okay, just wanted to make sure that snap hadn't messed me up. Okay, so what did we say? We're to 0.2 now. Come down. 0.2. Move tool. Control. And we are to 0.2. And then I believe this one should be our last one. So we are going to make a little tiny gap of 0.1. Enter. We are going to get the corner. We're going to move it with a tap in the control, and oh my. Okay, now this is what I want you to understand. I have drawn a gap here that is 0.1 millimeters. Just because I can draw it doesn't mean I can make it. So we've got this nice array of gaps, and we want to see what will actually work. All right, now what we said is let's zoom out. We said that we wanted to both make holes and we want to make both holes and we want to make columns. And so the bottom ones are going to be the holes. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up some of these guides just because I was putting these extra guides in when I was doing some testing along the way, or some measurements along the way. So I'm going to get rid of those extra ones. All right, so what I'm going to do now is these are going to be the holes. I also want columns. So I'm going to come in with my select tool and I'm going to select all of those. Okay, and then I'm going to move from this corner because I want that corner to be there. So I get my move tool. I grab the corner, I tap control because I want to leave my old ones there, and then boom. You see how all of a sudden how fast this is going? All right, now I want to make these bottom ones holes. So I'm going to make the holes 15 millimeters deep, and so I'm going to get my push. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to get my push-pull tool. I'm going to get this face. Let's see if I got it. Yeah, and I'm going to go down a little bit. Then I'm just going to say 15, enter. All right, now I want to be looking down on that hole a little bit more because I want to make sure that I can reference it as I'm making these other ones because I want to kind of go fast. So I get my push-pull tool. I say let's select this and then reference it to that. And then select this and reference it to that. Select this face, reference it to that. So you see all these are going to be the same depth. I'm not having to type in the depth every time. I'm just referencing it to the one before. So boom, here goes to there, here goes to there. And you could come back all the way to this one if you wanted to. This is a little easier to come all the way back. And the reason for that is because I can see down in that hole. And if I'm not careful, I'm not going to see the bottom of the hole and I'm going to miss it. So I'm going to come back to one of these that's easier to get to the bottom of the hole. This is kind of fun once you get it going. That was tedious there to begin with, right? When we were having to make all these rectangles. We are almost done with these holes, aren't we? Did I mess something up there? Yeah, I think I messed something up. Edit, undo, push-pull. Okay, some reason I didn't select it. I was doing the wrong one. Okay, so now do that. I've got two more. Let me get my hand over here to, okay. Now we will get the push-pull, get this last one, reference it to that one, and then let's just look and make sure that they all look good. Yeah, so we've got all of those as holes, and the spacing between these slots goes from 2 millimeters all the way down to 0.1 millimeter. Right, these we want to make columns, and so I'm going to select this, and I'm going to come up, how far? 15, enter. So that one's 15. Now we should just be able to kind of go to town, I think. Okay, reference to that. So here we're making columns with different spacings between them. I think this is fun. Okay, let me kind of make sure I'm still looking at these. Okay, so do you see what we have here is we have columns, and the space between the columns starts at 2 millimeters and goes all the way down to 0.1 millimeters. Now, if you were designing for microfabrication like nanotechnology and a microelectronic facilities, these gaps might start at 1 micron or 2 microns and go in 0.1 micron steps down. So you see it's all the same whether you're working with 3D printers or you're working with microelectronic facilities. It's about learning your design rules. And so I think that this is just a really dandy little design that is going to allow us to see just how well we can print on our 3D printers. And I'll tell you, all 3D printers are not going to be the same. And so when I get a new 3D printer, I like to design something like this, and then I like to fabricate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second, and I'm going to, well, more than a second, probably more like a few hours, I'm going to print this. And so I will pause the video and I will come back after it is printed. Okay guys, I am back and I have successfully printed this, and this is what we came up with. All right, so let's look. I will make myself bigger here maybe. All right, so let's see if I can kind of show it to you. See how I have these slots, okay, and then these gaps. And I might even see with a little luck over here if I can show it to you. Maybe I can show you a little bit more detail here with a little luck. Let's see. All right, give me just a second. Okay, go right here. Okay, there we go. Let me get out of your way again. All right, get the mouse out of the way. Okay, so this is what we fabricated. Let me see if I can get a good, clear focus on that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's look. This we designed to be a 2 millimeter gap. So we're going to get our calipers. We learned how to use our calipers last time, and we're just going to kind of normalize, see how well we did. So I'm in millimeters, I'm zeroed, I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at that little gap there. And okay, if you look at that, it's 2.05, and so that's really, really good. That's better than a, that's better than a percentage accuracy there. So that looks good. And then we come down, and then we go to like 1.9, okay, 1.8, 1.7. So that's looking pretty good. But let's look at what happens here, okay? Let's look at what happens, and I'm really trying to get good focus here for you. Let me see if I can focus one more time. Okay, so let's look at what happened. The 1.9 is good, 1.8, 1.76, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 millimeter is still good, 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, or 1 minute, let's try it again. This is 2, 1.9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And this is 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2. Look at this. We could make a gap of 0.2 millimeters and still have two distinct holes. But look, when we tried to make the gap 0.1 millimeters, it just went away and it's not there. And so what does that tell us? Hole spacing, the hole spacing, we have a design rule. And what is that design rule? That design rule is 0.2 millimeters. Now, if we really wanted to get fancy, we could go between 0.2 and 0.1 and see down in there where it breaks out. You'll make another one of these and find that out. But for my purposes, I'm happy just knowing things should be okay as long as I don't try to build holes that are closer than 0.2 millimeters together. All right, how about our columns? Let's look at our columns. Let me see, maybe I can turn it this, let's see, I'll turn it this way. So you can see that the gap here, again, is it's 2 millimeters, 1.987654321 and so when I have 1.0 spacing, I am still getting I have 1.0 spacing, I'm still getting a gap. 0.9876543 At point 2, I'm still getting a gap, but you see that it's almost starting to bridge at point 2. But if we try to look at this at point 2, I'm starting to get a little bit of bridging. I believe that it would work at point 2, but look when we try to get to point 1, there is no gap there. At the point 1 spacing, these two columns have become one column. So then if I say, like, I would call this hole spacing, I would call this line spacing. The line spacing likewise is 0.2 millimeters, which means if I want to make two columns and I want to make sure that they are in fact two columns, they need to be spaced at least 0.2 millimeters apart. Those two numbers are not always going to be the same. Sometimes your design rules for your lines are going to be different than your design rules for your spaces. In this particular case, they were the same. Now, like I say, I could go in and try to fine tune it. Where does it fail between 0.2 millimeters and 0.1 millimeters? Maybe you could get down to 1.3 millimeters. Okay, so yeah, maybe it would go all the way down to 1.3 millimeters. So you could make another one of these, and then you could try to fine tune it. But for my purposes, I'm happy. What I know is that for the Raise 3D Into printer that I'm using, as long as I keep my mechanical objects 0.2 millimeters apart, I'm going to be okay. As long as I keep my holes 0.2 millimeters apart, I'm going to be okay. And that's good enough for me. Now, the other thing you could do is you could go in and start tweaking your 3D printer settings, and you could see how far you could push that envelope, okay? But we've sort of gotten our first look at design rules. Again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to think not in a vacuum. You don't just work in a vacuum, right? You don't just work in a vacuum. You work and design thinking about what your fabrication infrastructure is going to be able to support. And if you're not given design rules, the first thing you need to do is to sit down and make some structures that will allow you to determine your design rules. Now, you can imagine there's other design rules than the things we've just done here, but this is just a start. The next thing that I would probably be interested in is I would be interested in the next concept of like putting a peg in a hole. And like if I wanted a tight press fit that you would just put things together once, what would the tolerances need to be for a press fit versus what would the tolerances need to be for something that would be a smooth slip fit? That would be the next set of design rules that I would determine, but we can do that in another video. But what I hope you're kind of getting is I hope that you're getting some experience of designing some 3D objects in SketchUp. That's what I promised. I'd teach you how to use SketchUp. But man, the biggest problem with designers is that they don't think about the fabrication infrastructure when they design something, and they come up and they draw it and they just kind of throw it off like somebody else's problem to build it. No, you've got to design working with design rules, understanding your design rules, determining your design rules, and then designing for something that can actually be built and actually be manufactured. Okay, this has been lesson number 6. I really hope you guys are following along. I hope you're finding this to be useful. If you like this video, think about giving us a thumbs up. Think about supporting this channel by subscribing to it. Love to hear your comments down below. I read all of the comments that you guys give, and so I would love to hear your feedback about this series of videos. Again, I'm doing it a little different. I'm not just showing you how to draw things. I'm showing you how to draw things thinking about the manufacturing. Okay, this is Paul McWhorter from Toptechboy.com, and I will talk to you guys later.